Hey, we've got a problem here.
What did you do?
Nothing. I stirred the tanks.
Whoa. Hey.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we have a problem.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and obviously here on the channel, we've been kind of taking the temperature of the comic book industry after everything that's happened, and certainly one of the longer range issues that we've been watching and monitoring is what's happening over at IDW. It doesn't appear that they're in the greatest financial shape, and we have some new news on that front, specifically about Chris Ryall exiting the company and a little bit more information. And here to talk with me about that is my good friend, the poobah of comics, Perch. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Great to talk to you today.
And if you're enjoying the content on the channel, please make sure that you're subscribed. If you're new, take a look around. I think you're going to want to subscribe because we have so much great content here. Definitely give the video a thumbs up. And if you enjoy Comics by Perch right here, he has his very own YouTube channel, and you're going to have 3 opportunities to subscribe to his channel. Go into the video description. There should be a link. There will be an icon at the 1 minute mark where you can go to his channel and subscribe. And at the very last 30 seconds, there will be an even bigger icon where you can go and hit that and subscribe to his channel. So definitely support Perch because he's doing great things over there as well.
Well, it's really nice of you. And if you're listening to this right now and you're not subscribed to Thinking Critical, you're out of your mind. I don't know what you're doing. You're at this point into the video and you haven't subscribed. It's right there. It's right there. Just click and then you'll be happy and life will be better.
I couldn't agree more. But let's get to the main event. So there are a few things to talk about. Well, we got to talk about the big one. So Chris Ryall has been with IDW for like 15 years. And I remember a few years ago, he had this weird situation where the writer of G.I. Joe, I believe it was Aubrey Sitterson at the time, was writing some very odd comments on 9/11, kind of disparaging people having an emotional reaction to that. Joe fans were none too happy, but I guess Chris Ryall couldn't let him go, and like he was going to be ghost writing like G.I. Joe comics, but not getting credit or something. And then so he kind of got booted out of his position at IDW, and then they had some more financial issues, and Howard Jonas, who I believe was the majority shareholder, kind of took over the company, and he brought Chris Ryall back about 18 months ago.
Yeah,
December. And now he's leaving again.
Yeah, it was just December 2018, so it's been a year and change, a year and a virus that he's been back in the company, and he's leaving again. So it's been a 2 very quick skips for Chris Ryall, and you know, I mean, the last year I think was really meant to put the company kind of back on the map, get it kind of back under some stable financial footing. Obviously, that didn't happen, so I'm sure that weighs into what happened today and just the general performance of the company. So it was a short return for Chris.
Yes, and he I believe he had 3 roles. I think he was the publisher, the editor-in-chief, and maybe the chief creative officer, right?
That's right. He had multiple, and I mean, it comes at a time where IDW has some issues. They lost Greg Goldstein and Shelley Bond, Ted Adams. So they have a number of these people kind of leaving the company. There's been some scandals going on. There was a lot of kind of rumblings about Ryall as well. So it's unclear exactly what prompted this to happen. But you know, obviously he leaves multiple roles, and it's just it's not a sign of stability. As if you're here in the company and you're trying to get it to a place of financial footing to be able to sell or to partner or snatch up some other licenses, a kind of CEO, head, creative officer leaving, coming back, leaving again after such a short period of time, it just screams instability.
Yeah, and this obviously follows. They let go of some very senior employees at the company just recently associated with COVID-19. I guess they were downsizing to save some money. Obviously, we do know IDW was on the list of comic publishers that took the PPP loan, so they were in need of some financial assistance. And it's just, there's always smoke with IDW, at least for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and it's getting thicker and thicker. I mean, the PPP loan was, I'm sure, helpful, but at the same time, with the layoffs that they've done, they do not qualify for the forgiveness aspect, so they're going to have to pay that money back at some point. And it's none of this is helpful. I mean, right now, what the company really desperately needs is to either find a big money mark investor who's going to, help give the company another couple of years of life so that they can hopefully spin it to some things, or they're going to have to find an acquirer outright. But At this point, with kind of the writing on the wall with both the executive team, we've seen how their properties have done. The only one that's really made a mark on Netflix was Lock and Key. And even then it's overshadowed by things like the Umbrella Academy and others. It's just, none of this is great news. And it really feels like we're heading to the end of the story.
It certainly does. It's been a rough few years. They've just been having a financial quarter after quarter, which is these huge losses. I remember the last quarter, everyone was like, "Oh, they only lost like a few $100,000." It's like, well, everything's shut down and they weren't publishing comics anymore. You know, technically they couldn't lose money because they weren't selling anything or producing anything, right?
No, that's right. I mean, their outlay was going down so much that it just, I mean, of course they were going to spend less, but it's just, they're coming back into things struggling and weak, and they're definitely doing some downsizing. So it's just not, it's not a good situation. You can't see things turning around anytime soon.
We've talked about here on the channel how basically their credit rating is so bad they actually can't borrow money on traditional markets. They have to go to individual investors and kind of offer them kind of different deals, maybe stocks and things like that. You know, kind of speaking of that, Howard Jonas, who we mentioned before, he kind of took over the company. He brought Chris Ryall back. Obviously, Chris Ryall is leaving. He's still there. He gave a large amounts of loans to IDW because they couldn't borrow them on the traditional markets, and they're kind of starting to pay him back. And I guess this week they paid him back by giving him CTM, which is essentially like a brochure kind of division that was within IDW that never really kind of made sense for what the business really was. But that now belongs to him, and he also gets, I believe, $1.6 million worth of like bonds. Yeah.
I mean, it's curious, right? I mean, the company had assembled a bunch of different pieces around it to really be able to create a marketing and sales vehicle that could, take these properties and put them in Hollywood, make some money on the upside with some of these things. And so a lot of these entities were really there to kind of complete the big picture that they were hoping to sell off of. And now what we're seeing is, by requirement, by need, they're selling these things off. So in many ways, they're making that acquisition picture look even weaker. The marketing and kind of, print brochure and that kind of thing, it was an odd piece. This is an easy one for them to carve off, but it is a sign of weakness in just the sense of it. They no longer have the complete picture. They don't have the really self-made IPs either. And it's just, as they whittle themselves down to kind of conserve capital and pay off, debt, it just makes their overall picture, slimmer and slimmer, that we're going to see a good outcome here. And I think I'd be very hard pressed to believe that a year from now we're here talking about them still being viable. I think we're entering into a 12 to 18 month time span here.
Yeah, it does definitely feel like we're entering the end game here. Yes, they did have a success with Netflix with Lock and Key. Yes, it did come back for a second season order, but they had already pumped so much money into October Faction and V-Wars. Those were money pits. They didn't make any money back off those. We know that they were having troubles financing the most recent seasons of Winona Earp and some of their other projects, that they just kind of wrecked their financial portfolio trying to jump headfirst into television and streaming, and they just didn't have the IPs available. Obviously, Lock and Key is the one that did take, but they needed more than one hit, to kind of get themselves out of this, and like piecing themselves off, kind of breaking themselves up, and then having to give it to the owner of the company now, just because he's invested so much money in the company and he has to get something back. He's going to want his money back eventually, and he's probably going to have to start piecing it off and trying to sell what's actually valuable. Unfortunately, the most valuable things they have comic book wise are licenses, and he ain't going to get money for that.
No, he won't. I mean, and maybe there's a scenario here where some of this stuff just gets smaller and smaller to the point that, you can sell off some of these licenses to another company, or you can at least trade them. But it doesn't exactly work that way. And that would be a basically conserving cash standpoint. It wouldn't be a making cash standpoint. And it would be the last signal that, there really is no in game that's going to happen here for them that's positive. So it's hard to predict a scenario. Right now, I think they're really having to bank on the idea of having a shock surprise hit But even then, if you look at the debt and everything they've amassed and where they have to go as a company, they have to. It's not just. I mean, they need a Walking Dead level hit and even then they may not have enough time for it to build momentum before the walls close down. So it's a bad time. Now maybe there's some other investors out there who want to kind of string them along in the hopes of kind of being part of the comic business. Never discount the idea of a money mark just wanting to be part of the industry so bad they're willing to throw away some money. That's always possible, but it's the routes to success are just really thin at this point.
Yeah, it's too bad because if you look at IDW, yes, they do have licenses. I think they do a wonderful job with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They do a great job with the Ghostbusters IP that they have right now, and some of the other ones. Sonic the Hedgehog is a pretty big hit, but they have some really cool, original stuff right now. Kanto was a really surprise hit. It turned out that one actually sold pretty well by IDW. Well, in indie standards, really, that one was a successful comic book. The Kill Lock has been great. I remember a couple of years ago, The Highest House was like an amazing fantasy comic. So they have really good stuff there, but with their profile and the reputation that they have, I just don't think that they get credit when they produce something like that because people only think of them as like the licensed comic book place.
Mm-hmm. No, that's right. And I think it speaks to when you have a business that's so fragmented and in so many different places, you have to put, you only have so much attention. And so you have to put it in certain places. So even if their original IP, it hasn't had the ability to go places, and it is a shame. I'm with you. And right now, the industry does not need people closing down. I think between the kind of the various angst and controversies and battles everywhere, I mean, there's fewer and fewer places for people to work. No matter whose side you are on any kind of political ideology war, there's just fewer places for you to go. And so companies shutting down and things like this happening are bad news for everyone. They're bad news for creators. They're bad news for the independents. And frankly, even for creators who want to keep their rates up. I mean, this drives prices down when people like this suffer. And so it's unhealthy. It's not good. Maybe they can save themselves with some kind of variant cover scheme where they get people who can make variant covers for their own properties. And that could be something.
They need YouTubers to make covers. I'm willing to do a Thinking Critical IDW cover special.
It could go. I'm sure nobody in the industry would have a problem with that. So maybe they should try that out.
Or they could always bring, Comics by Perch on there. You get the Poobah on the cover. You get a couple of lovely ladies maybe pouring some champagnes and putting some strawberries in his mouth.
It would work.
$1 million idea.
Disney would have no problems with that, and nobody else would either. So I think that's what they should do. It's how they save themselves at this point.
Absolutely. Well, Perch, more depressing news. I do think we are in the end state here where, they're starting to hire, they're firing senior personnel. Chris Ryall is obviously out. Now they're starting to piece themselves off to pay off their debtors, people that have loaned them money in the past. And, I'm sure they'll do what they can do to survive, but I don't, it's going to take like somebody with a lot of money that knows what they're getting into and doesn't mind losing some. A lot.
That's right. It really, I think their best hope at this point is finding somebody very wealthy who's always wanted to be in comics and is willing to put, $25 million into it. That's their hope. And that, unfortunately, there are those people out there for other industries. I don't know who that person is in comics, and it's tough times. So it's a shame to kind of end it on bad news, and I do hope things can go up for them. And if not, I hope some other companies can pick up the slack and help things go forward. But in some ways, it would be nice to have it go one way or another once and for all. I think this stringing along is bad for everybody too.
Certainly, it makes a sense of unease in the industry, and I'm sure the independent creators would like some type of finality to all of this as well, so they know concrete what's going to happen. But Perch, that's basically going to wrap it up here today. I really appreciate you coming by for a visit and talking about this news that we've been covering for like over a year now.
Yeah, always happy to be on, and hopefully the next time we talk about IDW is something happy. I don't think so, but hey, hope springs eternal.
It could happen.
Yeah,
it could happen.
It could happen.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.